Earlier this year, if somebody had said you could buy gold under spot price at an auction, you'd have laughed in their face. Premiums were high and silver and gold were not accessible at those price points. But recently I've seen a couple of different auctions on specialist coin houses. They went underneath spot price for gold, which is mad. Does that mean there are fewer buyers out there? And the buyers that are out there are a little bit strapped for cash. Perhaps they've spent all their money on silver and gold already. Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here, and a warm welcome to you all joining me for another precious metal ramble. I want to talk today about buyer fatigue for both gold and silver. I've seen a few occasions over this last couple of weeks where gold and silver has actually really struggled to sell quite quickly on social media platforms like the Silver Forum or other places generally. There's been a lot of silver in stock and you see a lot of high stock levels with dealers. But then there was a situation over this last weekend where there were a number of different specialist coin auction houses that held their auctions, and it was perhaps ill-advised for them all to run them at the same time. But there were some absolute killer bargains to be had, with even some gold being sold underneath spot price, which is of course a massive buyer potential win, but of course a big potential loss for sellers who are selling on specialist auction houses with buyers and seller premium, seller fees to factor in as well. So is buyer fatigue really a thing? Are we seeing the first real signs of that within the market? It's been of course a really busy 2021 so far for silver. Kicked off the start of the year with all of the hype and hysteria over the shortage of silver and how there's not going to be very much more of it still to come. But of course now we're seeing, as I kind of felt there always would be, a big kind of uptick in the amount of supply. We had certain big mints around the world which were slowing down production or seemingly low on stock. But a lot of this was, and still is in fact, supply chain issue related. So you've only got to look at the wider world right now of, like in the UK, we've got all of this fuel crisis and petrol shortage, which I could talk at length for many an hour about that particular situation and why it's really not as bad as people think, and for everybody to go out and panic buy is so irresponsible. I think if you've got commitments, if you need to get to work and things, go and fill up your car, fine. But if you're just joining the queues to fill up jerry cans because you're afraid there's going to be no more petrol and diesel into the future, then that's silly. But look, that's panic buying. That's a topic perhaps for another time. What I want to do today though is just talk about this buyer fatigue and how things are opening up right now. But I am seeing more and more of this sort of buyer fatigue. You see lots of silver and gold not going very quickly when listed for sale. I remember earlier this year on, for example, the Silver Forum, things would sell within minutes sometimes at really quite higher prices and premiums. Even, of course, spot price now has dropped and people perhaps have already filled up on their budgets for silver. I know that there's a lot of people who are new into the world of silver and they have been almost sort of front-loading their purchasing, so making all of their kind of bigger purchases at the start of their kind of stacking adventure rather than buying smaller amounts over time. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with that if you've got the right kind of outlook to go for the next 5, 10, 15 years or however long you've targeted to keep this silver for. But I do think that that has had an impact in terms of the volume of silver that's being sold right now and the buying sort of fatigue that is out there. Now, I've noticed that pretty much all of the big dealers at the moment have copious amounts of silver in stock, and it's not a big issue to find silver at all. So I think we can pretty much put to bed the idea that there is this humongous shortage of silver and that any kind of silver squeeze movement can happen and the markets can be squeezed. It's not possible at all, and it's going to lead to more people basically over leveraging themselves if they do really fundamentally believe this. If you want to buy silver right now, it's actually a really good buyer's market. So A couple of months ago, when the hype was hype, of course, it was a seller's market. Sellers hiked their premiums up. Dealers were making hand over fist in premium profit, and they were loving it. And they kept on buying more and more stock to sell, and it would sell very quickly, and that's great. But now you're seeing less and less purchases happening. Don't get me wrong, the volume is still high, and there are lots of people who are buying silver and gold still. But in terms of mass amounts, I mean, it's inevitable, isn't it? If you get all of these people that you see posting pictures of their 2021 acquisitions and they've bought 600, 700, 1,000 ounces or whatever it is, they've got a safe full of these bars, or perhaps they've bought one of the COMEX 1,000 ounce bars. It's not normal that those people would still be able to continue buying all of their silver like that on a monthly basis. So it's only natural that there will be fewer buyers out there. And simple economics, here we go. So last sort of earlier this year, January, February, there was this huge surge in new buyers. The hype hit and everybody wanted silver. And then, of course, we were compounded with supply issues. It's exactly like the petrol crisis that's happening right now. All of these new people went out and they didn't necessarily panic buy. They perhaps just realized, okay, actually, yeah, there is another option out there and silver is a potential thing that I should be looking at. And people went and bought it. There was definitely panic buying, though, at the same time, but that was not the same as it is in like the UK for petrol right now. So that was a seller's market. You had the opportunity as a seller to pretty much dictate the price because you knew that there were going to be a lot of people out there looking to buy silver and would just buy it almost regardless of price, and that was very much obvious. Now we see fewer buyers hitting the market, or fewer regular buyers with higher budgets. And of course, the world has progressed quite considerably since January and February this year, and supply chains, whilst still very sort of disrupted in this world, are starting to open up. Mints are continuing their productions. It's not that there is no silver out there. There is plenty of silver out there, and all of these new releases and coins are coming out. And you did see a lot of the big mints struggling a little bit with their supply earlier in the year, and it was, partly down to the fact that a lot of the blank manufacturers. I remember reading a really interesting article that the blank manufacturer for the US Mint, I can't remember exactly how, are they Sunshine Mint? They could be Sunshine Mint, they could not be, so don't quote me on that. But basically they started selling their own products, their own blanks, because they realized they could contractually supply to the US Mint for $1 over spot for every single blank they produce, or they could stick their own design on it and sell it for $5, $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 over spot. So instantly quadrupling, quintupling, even, octupling, if that's even a phrase, their profit margins. So completely understandable to have that happen. And that's no longer really the case. You see a little bit more of an equalization, a little bit more normalization of markets right now. And simple economics means if there is less demand from consumers and the supply has got better, that premiums and prices will come down. And we've seen that. Silver and gold prices have come down over these last couple of months. And that's simple economics. Now, you look at the demand of this stuff and you see a lot of people talking about how it's incredibly popular and how it's still going to be the one thing that you should have, and you should have lots of it going forwards. But ultimately, I still am a firm believer that if you really do need to have silver in your life, it needs to be part of a diverse, long-term portfolio that is not dependent on a big shoot the moon. And it is interesting watching a lot of the sort of media outlets and YouTube's channels and personalities, or bullion dealers that were basically hawking the fact that silver was going to go to the moon earlier this year, are now changing their tune a little bit. It is, it's never anyone else's fault for this. It's always something, it's never their fault. It's always someone else's fault for these occurrences to change. It's not how the world works. There's no such thing as an easy, quick win for silver or gold. So buyer fatigue is definitely a thing. I know from my personal experience, so let's bring this round in a full circle to my own experience. So I have, over this last couple of years, had a certain amount of budget for buying gold as an investment for the long term. And for me, that has slowed down a little bit, but not necessarily because of buyer fatigue, but just simply because I do feel like there is going to be a better price available over the long term for gold and silver potentially. Silver's come down a lot more than gold in this last couple of weeks. The ratio is changing in sort of gold's favour to some degree, but we'll see. Sorry, to silver's favour to some degree. That stretching ratio really does make silver a little bit more attractive than gold. So for me, it's about sitting back and waiting and relaxing and just waiting to see where things go with these crazy markets. Because one thing that's for sure is that this world is categorically batshit crazy. There is no regard in my mind for how things can be normal anytime soon. We're going to be living with the complete mania that is post-pandemic Britain and US and Europe and everywhere in the world. There's going to be supply issues. There's going to be secondary lockdowns, I feel, in the not too distant future when the winter season happens. Could be wrong about that, who knows? But ultimately, I am pretty skeptical about the full normalization of the world's economies going forward. And silver and gold really does help my sort of basically sense of everything will be okay in the end. If I have some of this stuff, then at least I am protected. And that's why I still am a champion for silver and gold, but not a champion for just like pump and dump, basically. So yeah, buyer fatigue. I've definitely noticed it. If you see any great deals out there, they are accessible, I think, at the moment. And as I said, there are a couple of coin auction houses which had lots of items go under spot price, which is mad, because the sellers will be the ones that really miss out there. They'll have admin fees to pay, and then of course the sellers fees as well, which can be something like 10, 11, 12% with payment management, postage costs and things like that. So you get this sense that there's a big there's a lot of people trying to cash out, I think, on certain things, and there's not as many buyers that are willing to buy right now. Perhaps there are a lot of people like me who are just sitting back and waiting for prices to drop even further before backing up the truck, my favourite phrase of all. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section about your strategies you're going forward in the future. Are you waiting for more price drops? Do you think that the amount of silver available right now is representative of true supply, or do you think there is this kind of lull that we're just waiting for these prices to change right now? It'd be really interesting to know your thoughts down in the comment section, so please feel free to comment and we'll see you down there. And if you've enjoyed this video and presentation, then please make sure that you hit the thumbs up button as well. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next video. Thanks as always, and please make sure that you like, share, comment and subscribe for more.